آمنوا بالله ورسوله وأنفقوا مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيه فالذين آمنوا منكم وأنفقوا لهم أجر كبير.
Believe in Allah and in His Messenger and expend of what He has entrusted to you. A great reward awaits those of you who believe and spend their wealth.
7. The addressees here are not the non-Muslims, but, as is borne out by the whole subsequent discourse, the Muslims who had affirmed the faith and joined the ranks of the believers, but were not fulfilling the demands of the faith and conducting themselves as true believers should. It is obvious that non-Muslims cannot be invited to affirm the faith and then immediately asked to subscribe generously to the cause of jihad for the sake of Allah, nor can they be told that whoever would fight and spend his wealth in the cause of Allah before the victory would attain to a higher rank than him who would perform these services later, for, when a non-Muslim is invited to the faith, the preliminary demands of it only are presented before him and not the ultimate ones. Therefore, in view of the context, the meaning of saying, "Believe in Allah and His Messenger," here would be, O people, who profess to have affirmed the faith and have joined the ranks of the Muslims, believe in Allah and Messenger, peace be upon Him, sincerely and conduct yourselves as the true and sincere believers should. 8. Here, by spending is not implied spending on public welfare, but, as is clearly borne out by the words of verse 10, it implies subscribing to the cause of the war effort that was being waged at that time under the leadership of the Prophet, peace be upon him, to uphold Islam against paganism. Two things, in particular, were such for which the Islamic government at that time stood in great need of financial help. First, the war equipment. Second, supporting and sustaining the oppressed Muslims, who due to persecution by the disbelievers had emigrated, and were still emigrating, to Al-Madinah from every corner of Arabia. The sincere Muslims were trying their best to render as much help as they could, but meeting the entire expenses in this regard was much beyond their means and resources. And that this same spirit of sacrifice has been commended in verses 10, 12, 18 and 19 below. But among the Muslims there were quite a number of well-to-do people, who were watching this struggle between Islam and paganism as mere spectators and had no feelings whatsoever that the faith they claimed to believe in also imposed certain rights on their life and wealth. This second kind of people are the addressees of this verse. They have been exhorted to believe sincerely, and to spend their wealth in the cause of Allah. 9. This has two meanings and both are implied here. The first meaning is, the wealth that you possess is not, in fact, your personal property but has been given to you by Allah. You are not its exclusive master and owner. Allah has given you proprietary right over it as His vicegerent. Therefore, you should have no hesitation in spending it in the service of the real master. It is not for the vicegerent to withhold the master's wealth from being spent for the master's own sake. The second meaning is, either has this wealth been with you since ever, nor will it remain in your possession forever. Yesterday it was in some other people's possession, then Allah made you their successor and entrusted it to you. A time will come when it will not remain with you, but some other people will succeed you as its owners. Therefore, in this short-lived ownership, when you are its trustees, spend it in the cause of Allah so that in the hereafter you may be rewarded for it, permanently and eternally. This same thing has been stated by the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the Hadith. Tirmidhi relates that once a goat was slaughtered in the Prophet's, peace be upon him, house, and its flesh was given away to the poor. When he came to the house and asked, what remains of the goat? Aisha replied, nothing but a shoulder. Thereupon the Prophet, peace be upon him, remarked, nay, the whole goat but the shoulder. That is, whatever has been given away for the sake of Allah, has, in fact, been saved. According to another hadith, a person asked, O Messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah, what kind of charity brings the highest reward? He replied, that you should give away a thing in charity when you are hale and hearty, when you feel it could be saved and may like to invest it in the hope of earning more. Do not wait till death when you may say, give this to so and that to so and so, for at that time the wealth has in any case to pass on to so and so. Bukhari, Muslim. According to another hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, man says, my wealth, whereas his own share in his wealth is no more than what he has eaten up, or worn away, or passed on in charity. Whatever remains will leave him and will be passed on to others. Muslim. 10. Here again, spending wealth in the cause of jihad has been regarded as an essential demand of the faith and a proof of one's sincerity in it, as if to say, the true and sincere believer is he who does not shirk spending wealth on such an occasion.
وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولُ يَدْعُوكُمْ لِتُؤْمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ وَقَدْ أَخَذَ مِيثَاقَكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُّؤْمِنِينَ.
How is it that you do not believe in Allah, when the Messenger calls you to believe in your Lord, and although He has taken a covenant from you, if indeed you are believers?
11. That is, you are adopting this unbelieving attitude and conduct at a time when the Messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah is present among you, and you are receiving the invitation to the faith not through an indirect and remote means but directly through the Messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah himself. 12. Some commentators have taken this pledge to imply the pledge of service to Allah, which had been taken at the beginning of creation from the future offspring of Adam, peace be upon him, and some others take it for the pledge with which man has been naturally endowed to serve and obey Allah. But the truth is that it implies the conscious pledge of obedience to Allah and His Messenger, peace be upon him, that every Muslim makes to his Lord by the affirmation of the faith. At another place in the Quran the same pledge has been referred to thus. Keep in mind the blessing Allah has bestowed upon you and do not forget the solemn covenant which He made with you and which you confirmed, when you said, we have heard and submitted. Fear Allah, for Allah knows the very secrets of the hearts. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayat 7. Abadah bin Samit relates, the Messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah had made us pledge that we would listen and obey both in sound health and in ill health, would spend in the cause of Allah both in prosperity and in adversity, would enjoin the good and forbid the evil, would proclaim the truth for the sake of Allah and would not fear the blame of any one in this regard. Musnad Ahmad.
هو الذي ينزل على عبده آيات بينات ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور وإن الله بكم لرؤوف رحيم.
He it is who sends down clear signs to His servant, so as to bring you out from darkness into light. Surely, Allah is most kind and most compassionate to you.
وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تُنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا وكلا وعد الله الحسنى والله بما تعملون خبير.
How is it that you do not expend in the way of Allah, when to Allah belongs the inheritance of the heavens and the earth? Those who spent their wealth and took part in fighting before the victory cannot be equated with those who spent their wealth and took part in fighting afterwards. They are higher in rank than those who spent and fought afterwards. But to each Allah has promised a good reward. Allah is well aware of all that you do.
13. This has two meanings. 1. Your wealth is not going to stay with you forever. One day you will leave it behind, then Allah alone will inherit it. Thus the best thing would be that you should spend it yourself in the cause of Allah so that your reward for it is guaranteed with Allah. If you do not spend it yourself, it will in any case return to Allah, but then you will not be entitled to any reward from Him. 2. You should have no fear of indigence and poverty when you spend it in the cause of Allah, because Allah for whose sake you would spend your wealth is the owner of all the treasures of the heavens and the earth. He possessed not only what He has bestowed on you today but has much more to bestow on you tomorrow. This same thing has been expressed at another place thus: O Prophet, say to them, My Lord gives abundantly to whomever of His servants He wills and sparingly to whomever He wills. Whatever you spend, He replenishes it by other provisions. He is the best of providers. Surah Saba, Ayat 39. 14. That is, although both are entitled to the reward, yet the former are necessarily higher in rank than the latter, for they face greater risks for the sake of Allah in difficult circumstances, which the latter not. They spent their wealth at a time when there appeared no remote chance of victory that would compensate for their expenditure, and they fought the disbelievers at a critical time when there was an ever-present apprehension that the enemy might overpower and crush the followers of Islam completely. Mujahid, Qatada and Zayd bin Aslam, from among the commentators, say that the word victory in this verse has been used for the conquest of Mecca, and Amir Shabi says that it refers to the truce of Hudaybiyah. The former view has been adopted by most of the commentators, and in support of the latter this tradition from Abu Sa'id Khudri is presented. During the time when the truce of Hudaybiyah was concluded, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to us, In the near future there will appear the people whose deeds will make you look upon your own deeds as mean and trifling. But even if one of them possessed a mountain of gold, and he spent all of it in the cause of Allah, he would not attain to your spending 2 pounds, or even 1 pound of it. Ibn Jarir, Ibn Abi Hatim, Ibn Mardiyah, Abu Nuaym Isfahani. Furthermore, it is also supported by the hadith which Imam Ahmad has related on the authority of Anas. He says, Once a dispute arose between Khalid bin Walid and Hadrat Abdur Rahman bin Auf, in the course of which Khalid said to Abdur Rahman, You people assume your superiority over us on account of your past services. When this thing came to the Prophet's, peace be upon him, notice, he said, By God in whose hand is my lift, even if you people spent gold equal, in weight, to Mount Uhud, or equal to other mountains, you would not attain to the deeds of these people. From this it is argued that in this verse victory refers to the truce of Hudaybiyah, for Khalid bin Walid had embraced Islam after this truce and had participated in the conquest of Mecca. However, whether victory in this particular case is taken to imply the truce of Hudaybiyah or the conquest of Mecca, in any case the verse does not mean that the distinction of the ranks is confined to this one victory alone, but as a general principle it shows that those who fight and spend in the cause of Islam at the time when disbelief and disbelievers appear to be dominant, and Islam seems to have no remote chance of victory, are far superior in rank to those who make sacrifices after the conflict between Islam and paganism has been decided in favor of Islam. 15. That is, Allah does not bestow His favors blindly. He sees who has performed what deeds, under what kind of circumstances, and with what motive, and then determines the rank and the reward of the deed of each person with full justice and awareness.
من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له وله أجر كريم.
Who is it that will give Allah a beautiful loan, a loan that Allah will repay after increasing it many times and grant him a generous reward?
16. How generous and beneficent is Allah that if a man spends the wealth granted by himself in His way, He calls it a loan himself, provided that it is a good loan, that is, a loan which is given with a pure intention, without any selfish motive of winning reputation and renown, or of doing favor to somebody, but only for the sake of Allah's approval and to win His goodwill and rewards. Allah makes 2 promises in this regard. 1. That He will repay it increasing it manifold. 2. That He will also give from Himself the best reward for it. According to a hadith reported by Abdullah bin Masud, when this verse was revealed and the people heard it from the Prophet, peace be upon him, Abid Dada Ansari asked, O Messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah, does Allah want a loan from us? The Prophet, peace be upon him, replied, Yes, O Abid Dada. He said, Kindly show me your hand. The Prophet, peace be upon him, extended his hand towards him. He took his hand in his own hand and said, I give away my garden in loan to my Lord. Abdullah bin Masud says that the garden had 600 data palms and also his own house in which his family lived. Saying this to the Prophet, peace be upon him, he went straight back home, and calling out to his wife said, Come out, O mother of Dada, I have loaned this garden to my Lord. She replied, Dada's father, you have made a good bargain, and she immediately vacated and left the garden with her children. Ibn Abi Hatim. This incident throws light on the conduct of the sincere believers of that time, and from this one can also understand the kind of the good loan that Allah has promised to return, increasing it manifold with a rich reward in addition.
يوم ترى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يسعى نورهم بين أيديهم وبأيمانهم بشراكم اليوم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ذلك هو الفوز العظيم.
On that day, you will see believing men and women that their light will be running before them, and on their right hands they will be told, A good tiding to you today. There shall be gardens beneath which rivers flow, therein they shall abide. That indeed is the great triumph.
17. This and the following verses show that the light on the Day of Judgment will be specifically meant for the righteous believers only. As for the disbelievers and the hypocrites and the wicked people, they will be wandering about in the darkness, as they had been in the world. The light there will be the light of righteous deeds. The sincerity of the faith and the piety of the character and conduct will turn into light that will lend brightness to the personality of the virtuous. The brighter the deed, the more luminous will be his person, and when he will walk towards paradise, his light will be running forward before him. The best explanation of it is Qatada's mursal tradition, in which he says, The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, The light of someone will be so strong and sharp that it will be running on before him equal to the distance between Al-Madinah and Aden, of another equal to the distance between Medina and Sana'a, and of another even less than that. So much so that there will be a believer whose light will just extend beyond his steps. Ibn Jarir. In other words, the intensity of the light of a person will be proportionate to the extent of the good done and spread by him in the world, and the beams of his light will be running on before him in the hereafter, extending as far as his good will have extended in the world. Here, a question may arise in the mind of the reader. One can understand the meaning of their light running on before the believers, but what does their light running on only on their right hand mean? Will there be darkness on their left side? The answer is, when a man is walking with a light on his right hand, his left side also will be bright, though the fact of the matter is that the light will be on his right hand. This has been explained by the hadith, which Abu Dar and Abu Darda have reported, saying that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, I shall recognize the righteous people of my ummah by their light which will be running on before them, and on their right and on their left. Hakim, Ibn Abi Hatim, Ibn Marduya.
يوم يقول المنافقون والمنافقات للذين آمنوا انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم قيل ارجعوا وراءكم فالتمسوا نورا فضرب بينهم بسور له باب باطنه فيه الرحمة وظاهره من قبله العذاب.
On that day, the hypocrites, both men and women, shall say to the believers, Look at us, that we may extract some light from your light. They will be told, Go back and seek light for yourselves elsewhere. Then a wall shall be erected between them with a door in it. On the inside of it there will be mercy, and on the outside of it there will be chastisement.
18. It means that when the believers will be going towards paradise, the light will be before them, and the hypocrites will be stumbling about in the darkness behind. At that time they will call out to the believers, who lived with them together in the same Muslim society in the world, saying, "Look back towards us a while so that we also may get some light." 19. This means that the people of paradise will enter it through a gate, and then the gate will be closed. On one side of the gate there will be the blessings of paradise, and on the other the torment of hell. For the hypocrites it will not be possible to cross the barrier that will stand between them and paradise.